Today's video, we're going to recap the trade that we saw yesterday between the Edmonton Oilers and the New York Rangers. Plus, we have some NHL trade rumors to discuss, suggesting that the Calgary Flames and Ottawa Senators very well might be looking to acquire a backup goaltender. We'll discuss all that coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, we have a trade to review from yesterday between the Oilers and the Rangers, plus we have a couple teams that are possibly shopping here for a goaltender, so we'll get into what they might be looking for and some potential targets they may be taking a look at here. So most of you know by now, the Oilers and Rangers completed a trade yesterday with the Oilers sending center iceman Ryan Strome over to the New York Rangers for Ryan Spooner. Now when it comes to money and contracts, their deals are pretty much even. They both have an additional year left after this year at $3.1 million. And of course, Ryan Spooner, originally drafted by the Boston Bruins. Spooner was then traded last season to the New York Rangers as part of that Rick Nash deal, sending Nash from the Rangers over to the Bruins. And of course, Ryan Strome originally started with the New York Islanders and was traded to the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for Jordan Eberle. So I'm pretty sure the Oilers to this day are still regretting that trade. And they've now traded Strome away here in return for Ryan Spooner. Now, of course, they're very different types of players, so very well could give each player a fresh start and see what they can do here. Each player has had times in their career where they've looked pretty solid, but they've each had their fair share of struggles as well. So it's basically a swap of struggling forwards with a chance at a fresh start to see if they can get things turned around and maybe their new team might be a better fit. Kind of similar to what we saw a few days back here between the LA Kings and Pittsburgh Penguins when they traded Carl Hagelin and Tanner Pearson, swapping uniforms there. So it's kind of a trend right now where we're seeing some smaller one-for-one deals, giving guys a fresh start, a new scenery here, and a chance to get things going. So I wouldn't be surprised, like I mentioned in yesterday's video, of teams like LA and Pittsburgh, or even the Edmonton Oilers again, that they're not completely done here. They do have some other moves they could continue to do to shake things up and see where things go. But I do see Spooner being a pretty decent fit in Edmonton. I think he's got a longer term, a higher ceiling than Ryan Strome, but Strome can certainly be a decent number 3 center at times as well. Ryan Strome did have a 50-point season back in 14-15, but it's kind of been inconsistent since. The following year, his numbers were down, spent some time in the American Hockey League, which is kind of what led to that trade between the Islanders and Oilers, swapping Eberle for Strome, because at the time, Eberle was kind of struggling in Edmonton as well. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, what you think of this trade. Personally, I think it is pretty even, but I do think long-term here, Spooner might have a slightly higher ceiling, so I might give a slight edge here to the Oilers, but overall, I do think it's fairly even, but I'd love to know what you think down in the comments. Now, as I mentioned as well, we do have some other NHL trade rumors to discuss today. We have teams like the Calgary Flames and the Ottawa Senators, who both, you could argue here, really do need an upgrade in net. I mean, Craig Anderson's been really solid for the Ottawa Senators, facing a ton of shots. They're giving up close to 40 shots per game, and even though he has a save percentage of .909, which may not seem real solid, considering the amount of work he's had to do, it's actually not as bad as it appears, and he certainly has not been the reason why they've lost any of their games this season. Anderson, for the most part, has been exceptionally really good. However, backup goaltender Mike Condon has been the opposite, has been exceptionally bad, found himself on waivers, down in the minors. He played his first game in Belleville, and he allowed 6 goals, so certainly not going well down in the American League as well. So the whole, I guess the point of sending him down to the minors to play some more games, get his confidence back, so far is not going well. He hasn't been playing a whole lot since that 6-goal game. Apparently he's nursing some kind of injury. And right now there's just not a whole lot of faith in Ottawa that Mike Condon can bounce back. With Condon being in the minors, the Senators have a backup, Mike McKenna, right now, who's been pretty well a career minor league goaltender at the American Hockey League level. I mean, McKenna's well into his 30s and has never really been a solid NHL goaltender, and we've seen as to why here in recent games. His few appearances with the Ottawa Senators have not gone very well. He's given up a ton of goals, and you can just tell he's not really that caliber of a goaltender. I mean, he's done okay for what's been expected, but it's really not what they need at all right now. Now, the Ottawa Senators, even though they may not be a tremendous team this year, they might not be a playoff team, but they do need to work hard to get themselves out of the basement. They don't have their first-round pick for 2019 that belongs to the Avalanche, and obviously they don't want that pick to be overly high, so they do have a lot of reasons to keep trying to win and get themselves as high in the standings as they can, regardless of where things go. So I do see Pierre Dorion trying to make an upgrade in this position sooner than later. The Flames find themselves looking for a goaltender, as well as I mentioned, Mike Smith really isn't getting the job done. His numbers are very, very, very underwhelming. David Riddick's played pretty well, and for the most part is getting more action here. He's been a lot more reliable and steady in that Calgary net. For the most part, the Calgary Flames are having a decent season. They're getting decent production up front. Their D isn't too bad. They're really the weak link so far for this Flames team. And the biggest concern is Mike Smith in net. He's just not getting it done. Last year, I thought Smith played very well, and it was the team in front of him that let him down too many times, which caused their demise to not make the playoffs. But this year, it seems to be the opposite. The team in front of him, in my opinion, has been playing much better, and Smith is just not getting it done. So there's been some debate here whether or not the Calgary Flames would consider trading Smith. I mean, I think they've been quite happy with Riddick, but I do think ideally Riddick is more served as a backup, even though he's been getting more starts and doing well with it. It's just hard to rely on him as being a consistent, steady starter at this point, and they really could use another experienced goaltender like Smith, for example, to kind of play along, play more games, and get better results. So obviously between Calgary and Ottawa, both potentially shopping here for a goaltender, who could they go be looking for? I mean, they're kind of in different situations where Ottawa has the veteran in Anderson and they need more of a backup goaltender, where the Flames could almost use more of a starter or somebody with starting experience at least. If you take a look around the NHL, there's certainly some starting goaltenders that are likely on the trade block and potentially available. I'm just not sure they'd be a fit in Calgary. Like, for example, we've heard tons of rumblings around Columbus Blue Jackets goalie Sergei Bobrovsky, but it is believed that he's given a list to the Blue Jackets of teams he would go to, because he does have a form of a no-trade clause in his contract, and it's not believed that Calgary would be on his list. It's highly doubtful, at least by most of the insiders from what they say. So they're probably right in that respect. So I don't see the Flames acquiring a guy like Bobrovsky, for example. And there really aren't a lot of other goaltenders around with a much starting experience that are likely available. I mean, you might see a team like Detroit maybe consider moving Jimmy Howard. There's been tons of rumors around him for the last little while, but he's actually done fairly decent for them here in his last stretch. So, between him and Bernier, they very well might not bother making a move, because they don't really have a lot of other depth within the organization to bring up another goaltender that they'd have confidence in. So, not really sure Detroit would be a team to look at. And most of the other goalies around the league that might be available are more like backup quality goaltenders, which better suits kind of what Ottawa is looking for. I mean, you look to a team like the Carolina Hurricanes, who have 3 goalies. At some point, something's going to give there. I don't see Darling being the guy to go. He's got the least favorable contract of the bunch. But then you got guys like Peter Mrazek and Curtis McElhinney there. So one of those two might become available here in the short term. You've got to wonder if New Jersey might consider trading Corey Schneider. Now, even though he does have the starting experience, his last couple of years have not gone well, and I think he'd be better served as a backup now as well. But Schneider might be an option for the right price, I guess. Maybe in Calgary, I guess that might be an option. You can't help but wonder with the Penguins, with Matt Murray, Casey DeSmith, and Tristan Jarry, with Jarry being in the minors, would they maybe consider moving him? I do think that one's a little bit more likely that they wouldn't move him, but he does have that potential, and he's old enough that you can't help but wonder if they might consider moving a goalie, where they do have the 3 guys that are still fairly young and all capable of playing at the NHL level. The other goaltender I find intriguing in all this is Montreal Canadiens prospect goalie Charlie Lindgren. With the Habs having Carey Price and Antti Niemi under contract here, that kind of pushes Lindgren down to the minors, and I can't help but wonder if Bergevin might consider trading Lindgren. Now, I think longer term, they brought in Antti Niemi kind of as that security, with the fact that Price has not been overly able to stay healthy the last few years, and then Lindgren kind of being a little inconsistent with his inexperience as well. So Niemi's kind of served a role there as that extra security should things not go right. But Niemi's played relatively well for the Habs. But Charlie Lindgren's age is certainly a possibility that Montreal might not want to part with him at this point in time. But you can't help but wonder if he could be a good fit in a city like Ottawa, for example. Now, of course, I know they're rivals, and you don't always see teams within divisions or rivalries like that make trades, but it certainly could happen. It wouldn't be the craziest thing we've ever seen. So personally, I do think Charlie Lindgren would be a good fit for what Ottawa is looking for. He kind of fits the description of what they need, but at the same time, I'm not sure the Habs would want to part with him. So if you look around the NHL, there's not too many teams carrying 3 goaltenders that are NHL level quality. So there's not a lot to be had out there, but I do know that we have information here that both teams are certainly looking for goalies for sure, and they both need one. In Calgary, I think, has a strong potential here to be a playoff team, and they're going to need better goaltending heading down the stretch here to make sure they make the playoffs and to stand any chance once they get there. On Ottawa's side of things, you can't have Craig Anderson play every single game, especially at his age. They're going to wear him out here as the season goes on. It's certainly not going to make for a stronger second half of the season, and they need to make sure they watch the standings closely here, as the last thing they want to do is finish in the basement and be at risk to get that top pick where it's not going to belong to them. So as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments down below in the comment section. Who should the Ottawa Senators or the Calgary Flames take a look at for some goaltenders here? There seems to be a fair bit of guys that might be on the market, but there's not a whole lot of high-end talent that I think would really fit with either city. So leave me your thoughts down below in the comments and we'll continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel here, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.